Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with, get ready. Oh my God. Yeah, Trevor Pinnock and the English Concert, or the English Concert and Trevor Pinnock, the complete recordings on Archive production. 100 of them, 99 CDs, and 1 DVD. Unbelievable. Now, I am ready to do this. I got my tea, lemon ginger with Oregon wild carrot honey. So hopefully my voice will get through this. And, Pinnock has always struck me as a finer conductor on the whole than his colleague Christopher Hogwood, who was the main competition. Not that Hogwood didn't have his brilliant moments. He did. He really did. But I think he was more of a sort of scholar turned performer, whereas Pinnock is a performer all the way through. He's a splendid keyboard player. His Goldberg variations absolutely blew my mind when it came out. I really, really enjoy a lot of his work, and I enjoy a lot of the work in here. I'm going to say that right from the start. I think that possibly he was, we'll just get to the disc. I know this is stupid speculation. But, the fact of the matter is the reason this exists, it's really interesting. It's a wonderful bit of discographic history because, back in the 80s and 90s, it was basically that period, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, when the period instrument movement really got going. Every label wanted their own group. And because the classical music industry was largely headquartered in the UK, you had lots of labels wanting lots of groups. So you had Hogwood with whatever the thing he was doing, the Academy of Ancient Music, that's what they were called, on Loiseau Lyre, which was then part of Decca. And you have these guys who were on Archiv, which was part of Deutsche Grammophon. Gardner in those days was on Erato and then Philips, right? And then you had EMI, which was a little bit late to the game, but they had the Taverner Consort with Andrew Parrott and people like that. They had their own group, and they also had the whole Reflexa series that came out of Germany that sort of predates all of this UK activity. And of course, Telefunken had Harnoncourt and Leonhardt, and those were the groups, all staked out with their big, juicy major labels, promoting them like crazy. Then we had, the collapse of the record industry, of course, the classical music industry, and the big consolidation, especially Universal, because Philips got sucked up by Decca. Decca's part of Universal. Deutsche Grammophon acquired, was part of that whole thing. They didn't acquire anything, but they were part of that whole conflagration or, conglomeration of labels, whatever you want to call them. It was sort of a conflagration and a conglomeration at the same time. And as a result of that, you had lots of groups doing lots of the same music with lots of the same people, because all of these nicely named early groups, the fabulous early something, whatever they're called, they're all the same people. They just changed their name depending on who they were recording for, or if they were doing concerts, what they were playing. But it was the same pool of pickup musicians for each ensemble. And so you had the Hanover Band, the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment, the English Concert, the Monteverdi Orchestra, Choir and Orchestra with Gardner, and the Academy of Ancient Music, and the Raglan Baroque players. God knows what they were. It was all the same people. So there wasn't a lot of difference in terms of sound and performance style. There was a difference in who the leaders were. And that's what really mattered. But of course, they were playing mostly Baroque music which was not made to really display the gifts of a conductor, or in this case, keyboardist, who was directing from the keyboard most of the time. So, excuse me. Yes, that's great. So, we're not talking about, oozing gobs of differentiated personality, as, for example, you really heard between Harnoncourt and Leonhardt, even in the same label, the Bach Cantata series. It's not like that. Anyway, that's what it was, and that's what we have. And we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to open this sucker. Oh, wait a minute. What's this? Discover our new video and audio streaming services. I don't think so. That goes into the dustbin, as they say in the biz. And you've got this lovely, lovely sturdy box, of course. So we'll put the top of it over here. And then you get a big, juicy booklet. And let's see, I can go through the big, juicy booklet. In fact, I think I will. I think I'll use the big, juicy booklet. These are original jacket things. But, having listened to most of them already, I don't feel like taking them out and putting them back again. All I will say is that they have adopted that incredibly charming swastika format from the carry-on boxes for displaying this and packing it all efficiently, I guess. I mean, you can take some like mixed nuts or something and stick it in the middle, and then when you have company, you can put this out there and have snacks. Anyway, so yeah, that's what you got. It's a big set, a pile of stuff, and we're going to talk about what it is. And let me get fortified, and we're going to start. Okay. Ready to start. Oh, well, you get past the wonderful essays by everybody about how they were pioneers of the early music movement and all that stuff. Oh, it was all so exciting. Now we get to CD 1. On your mark, get set. CD 1 is the string symphonies by C.P.E. Bach, the Hamburg symphonies. Wotken 182, numbers 1 through 6, written for Baron von Swieten. None of the early music groups did really well by these works. They were recorded too early. The best recording is actually on Hensler, using a forte piano as the continuo instrument. That was my suggestion. Oh. Anyway, it's not because they took my suggestion. It's because the string playing is probably the best of the bunch. The string playing in these days, in the early days, was a little raw, a little edgy, a little out of tune. And these symphonies, these C.P.E. Bach symphonies, were deliberately designed to be taxing, difficult, tricky. And so they are. I mean, the performances are lively, and it was unusual repertoire when this was recorded, of course. Still is to a certain extent. But the performances, well, this is 1979. They could be better. Let's face it. Then we've got more C.P.E. Bach flute concertos with Stephen Preston. That's just one disc, 2 flute concertos. That's the whole thing on it from 1980. Same comments apply. C.P.E. Bach's flute concerti are all transcriptions of keyboard concerti, which I prefer in their keyboard versions, quite frankly. Or it's the other way around, but I don't care. I like the keyboard parts better. Baroque flute is such an acquired taste. I mean, it's a sort of hollow, toneless, intonationally challenged, not the most alluring timbre out there. All right. Then we've got Johann Christian Bach. This is chamber music, quintets, flute, oboe, violin, cello, and keyboard. The sextet for oboe, 2 horns, violin, cello, and keyboard. And more of these things. This is fun. This is charming, delightful music. This was lovely. And I remember when it came out, it was just a wonderful sampling of completely unknown and interesting repertoire from a part of the musical cosmos that we knew little about. Just really, really what these people did that made their work interesting. And this was probably one of their least popular recordings, of course, because it was chamber music and because it was Johann Christian Bach. It was J.C., the London Bach. But still, very nice. Then we get to the heavy-duty stuff. Okay, Bach, orchestral suites. You have to have them. Yes, all of them. And then we get, what do we get? We get the Christmas cantata, a chorus. Yes, Unser Mund sei voll Lachens. And Ich hab den höchsten von ganzem Gemüte, Cantata Sinfonia, and the Sinfonia from the Easter Oratorio, and that's that. Okay. And then they've done them twice, right? I mean, they've got orchestral suites? These are the same ones? I have no idea. This is from 1978 and 79. And then these are from 1993. Okay, so they redid them. So then they did two more Bach overtures, numbers 2 and 3, with two more cantata sinfonias. Abend der desselbigen Sabbats and Falsche Welt, dir trau ich nicht. Oh, false world, I don't regret you, or something like that. I don't mourn you. Well, who cares? Anyway, yeah, okay, so you get lots of Bach overtures. They're fine. I don't know of any recordings of the Bach overtures that aren't fine. The music plays itself. It requires nothing by way of interpretation unless you're incredibly perverse and weird, and they are not incredibly perverse and weird. Then we've got, of course, the Brandenburg Concerti. I mean, this was one of those sets that everybody liked, and I still like it. It's zippy, it's brilliant, it's well done, it's nice, it's pleasant, like a million other period instrument Brandenburg Concerti recordings. It's so hard. Now, looking back over the repertoire, and, some of you have said you want me to do like more repertoire things. It'd be nice to do like all the Brandenburg Concerto recordings on period instruments, but my God, they're all so similar. The only thing that differs is like tempo. I know it's a terrible generalization, but they really are. And, you're trying to make distinctions between microcosmic differences between versions. My favorite period instrument Brandenburgs were always Jordi Saval's because they have bass lines. Yeah. But these are very, very good. And then we've got more Bach concertos. There's the Bach box that they did. They did like all the Bach concerti. There's the triple, the violin concertos with Simon Standage and Elizabeth Wilcock. Simon, the flute player and is Elisa Besnosiuk, and they're all famous people. And we've got some reconstructions of the double harpsichord concertos for oboe d'amore and violin and oboe and violin and other things. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh, harpsichord concertos, all the Bach harpsichord concertos with Trevor Pinnock. This was a very good series, and it was an important series. And I think when it came out, I'm not sure how much competition there was purely on the harpsichord for all of them. Even Telefunken, the D minor was not done by Leonhardt, right? It was done by somebody else. He did it for Sion or something. I don't know. It was a big mess. So this cycle was an important one, and it was the reference on period instruments for a very, very long time, and deservedly so. It was really fun, and it still is, even though the concerti for 3 and 4 harpsichords, oh my God. Talk about skeletons copulating on a tin roof. Oh, yeah. So we've got another triple concerto, another Brandenburg number 5. They've done like lots of these things. All right. In my opinion, the work of Trevor Pinnock is particularly exciting. His performances of Bach and Handel make me jump out of my seat. That was spoken by no less than Leonard Bernstein. And right he was. It's lovely. What a nice guy. And it was really cool that he said that. The William Boyce Symphonies. This was my reference go-to recording for the William Boyce Symphonies. I love this record. They are such charming pieces. I did a video on the Boyce Symphonies. I talk about this. Lovely, delicious little works. And what a charming recording it was. To make them more popular, to let us hear them with fresh ears. Fabulous. Then we've got the Corelli Concerti Grossi Opus 6. All 12 of those suckers. This is really nice because a lot of the repertoire here came in clumps, so we'll be able to get through it rather quickly. We're already up to CD 19, so we're making progress. Those are very good performances, like the Brandenburgs and all that stuff. Just lovely, fresh, Baroque period instrument stuff. And then Corelli Trio Sonatas. So those are nice to have. Johann Friedrich Foch. That was one of those composers who I said we could certainly live without. We could just disappear and nobody would care. Well, some people would care. I would not want to be without this delightful record of Focisms, such as they are. His Concerto A8 for trumpet, oboes, bassoon, violin, strings, cellos, double bass, harpsichord, blah, blah, blah. Concerto in C minor for bassoon, oboes, violins, and string things. And then we've got an overture and another concerto in B flat for chalumeau. That's the ancestor of the clarinet. the Chalumeau oboes, bassoon, and we have another concerto in D major for two horns, oboes, bassoons. These are fun. Let's not kid ourselves. Fash was fun. It would be a shame if he vanished forever, wouldn't it? Okay, next, Handel. Water music. Well, it sounds wet. That's all that we need to know about that. Music for the Royal Fireworks. I was playing that on the train the other day, this performance, because I have the Handel and Bach boxes. Remember, there were separate boxes, his complete Handel recordings and his complete Bach recordings, and they were all downloadable, and I have them on my iPod or my ear thing, my phone, and I can listen to them. And I was listening to the water music and the fireworks music, and they are so enjoyable. One of the things that's very interesting about period instruments is that when you have like thousands of them, as you would have for the music for the Royal Fireworks, here they all are. There you go. See all those folks? All those oboes and bassoons and horns and things. The sound actually becomes more mellow. It's not more strident. It's just the opposite of what you would think, because they all sort of blend and fuzz together, and the sound is rather pleasant and nice, and really much nicer than it would be if they were smaller forces sometimes. So, oh my goodness, it's a catastrophe. You know, they like those little Mylar scrunchy ball things and those little plastic spring things, and they just go chasing each other throughout the house, that stuff. Okay. Then we have some concerti a due cori. You know, these are two orchestras opposing each other, two groups of instruments opposing each other, and those are wonderful fun. And we've got, let's see, fireworks music and other concertos, and the occasional suite in D major, and the Passacaglia Gigue and Minuet in G major is all assembled by Handel's publishers and other people and whatnot, and it's so much fun. And then we've got, I love this disc, CD 24. This is Handel orchestral music from his operas, dances and overtures and other things. You've got, and oratorios too. We've got music from Alceste, Agrippina, Il Pastor Fido, which is like all dances, Saul, which is very good, Teseo and Samson. This was wonderful. Wonderful discovery of all the fabulous Handel that's like buried in these operas that nobody listened to for 200 years. Yeah, good stuff. Then we've got Handel. We're up to CD 25. More Handel. Concerti Grossi, Opus 3, which are just fun, and some maybe not be Handelian or whatever, but it was assembled by his publisher, and he had very little to do with it. But it was very popular, so he wrote the 12 Concerti Grossi, Opus 6, in homage to Corelli, and these are great, great, great works. This is a very fine performance of them. Every period instrument group worth their salt recorded them, as did every chamber orchestra that consisted mostly of strings. So there are billions of recordings of the Opus 6 Concerti Grossi, and these are just fine. Let me just check one thing. They don't use oboes, the optional oboes, which is good, I believe. They don't say that they do. Let's see, violins. Yeah, it's Alexander's Feast. Yeah. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Oh, they do use the oboes. There they are. Oboes 1 and 2 in places, in spots. I prefer them without oboes. That's why this was never one of my go-to versions. It's good. It's very good. Don't get me wrong. But, you know, I remember quite vividly, you know, listening to these things with oboes and without oboes. And the oboes give that sort of vinegary sound to the strings. I just want to hear strings in this music. I really do. Especially because Handel's writing for strings was so voluptuous. It was so beautiful. And if you really, use a little vibrato here and there and play with timbre, you can do such wonderful things. But that's me. You may be different. Then we've got more Handel concerti, the Alexander's Feast concerto, and oboe concertos, and all of the organ concerti. Oh, this was a great set too. It has the harp concerto with Ursula Holliger playing the harp for opus whatever it was, number whatever it is. Concerti Grossi number 5. No, concerto for organ number 6. What are they? They're opus 4, right? I mean, what was it? There's Opus 4 and Opus 7. Yeah, from Opus 4, number 6. There we go. It's a harp concerto. Da 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 dum bum 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 bum. Ba da 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 bum 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 bum. It's Handel going straight into the Rococo era, and I just love that piece. So all of these performances of the organ concerti are wonderful. For the ad lib movements that Handel never bothered to write down, they put in very smart organ arrangements of other little Handel keyboard pieces and things. It's really just a wonderful, wonderful set. I also have that on my iPhone thing, and I listen to those. They're so much fun. And if you think the organ is like an awful instrument, which it kind of is in so many ways, these are great because the organ, it was a little organ. It was a cute organ. It was a charming organ. Most of the pieces, there are only a couple of them that even use pedals. It was really just sort of a calliope, a wind harpsichord sort of thing. And the timbre is charming, and it's just delicious. Okay, Handel sonatas for 2 violins and other violins and other things. And now we get to the heavy-duty Handel stuff. Ready? Messiah. Yeah, this is my favorite Messiah, hands down. This is my reference recording for Messiah because it has all of the clarity and textural fidelity and textual fidelity and textural fidelity, both of them. But it also has the grandeur, the bigness, the pomp, in the Hallelujah chorus. It doesn't sound tiny. I mean, you're talking about the Messiah. It's not supposed to sound tiny. It just isn't. And it has wonderful soloists. I mean, it's Arlene Auger, Anne-Sophie von Otter, Michael Chance, Howard Crook, John Tomlinson. It's just marvelous. It's held up so well. It really has. And then we've got the coronation anthems, which are equally fine. If you like the Messiah, you'll love those. And we've got some, Sileti Venti, the motet, and Cecilia, Foggy und Sguardo cantata, with Jennifer Smith, who sings beautifully. That's lovely. And then we've got, the Dettingen Te Deum and the Dettingen Anthem. Those are my go-to recordings of those works. I mean, the Pinnock does Handel Bach's was all just terrific. It really was, really is. And, all this stuff is of course, here. So that's great. The Ode for Saint Cecilia'S Day with Felicity Lott and Anthony Rolfe Johnson. It's amazing. And then we've got, Belshazzar. Belshazzar is long. It's like unbelievably long. It's let's see, 57 minutes plus 52 minutes plus 61 minutes. So we're really talking 3 hours. It makes no difference. And the only problem here, of course, is James Bowman, your go-to countertenor in those days. There are so many better countertenors. Oh, my God. He sings the prophet Daniel. And, I would have killed Daniel immediately. But everybody else is fine. Arlene Auger, Anthony Rolfe Johnson, Catherine Robin, David Wilson Johnson, Nicholas Robertson, Richard Vistreich, as messenger. The countertenor thing was always a problem. It really was, because Handel never wanted to use countertenors. He used women. He didn't care what the sex of the person was. And male altos in those days were only used in places like, the Chapel Royal, or places where women were strictly forbidden. So you had to have male altos and falsettists, but Handel was an opera guy. And in Baroque opera, as you know, if you didn't have a castrato, you didn't use a countertenor. You used Marilyn horn. That's what you used. But, nowadays, of course, we have developed countertenors who sing beautifully, who have wonderful trained countertenor voices that are magnificent. And it is a wholly modern phenomenon. It has nothing to do with Handel or Baroque opera at all. So there you go. Then we've got Acis and Galatea in the Mozart arrangement, which I completely despise. I think Mozart's Handel arrangements are awful. They are sweet and lovely and mellifluous, and they take all of the piss and vinegar out of Handel's natural style. I mean, it's very funny. It's very, very funny. Here's the funny thing. Here's the extraordinary thing about this. People dislike modern instruments playing Baroque music because they say, it rounds off all the edges, and it's too soft and fuzzy, and it's too warm and schmoozy, and it does, And that's exactly what Mozart did. So we have Mozart doing what everyone dislikes today about modern instrument performances of Baroque music, but here we are playing them on early instruments. Yeah, makes a lot of sense, right? Who are these people? John Tomlinson, Barbara Bonney, and Jamie McDougall during the recording of Acis and Galatea. Well, it looks like they're having a good time. I have no quarrels with the performance, and of course the work itself is just amazing. But Mozart's arrangement? Nah. Haydn, lots of Haydn. He did Morning, Noon, and Night. He did all the Sturm und Drang symphonies, CDs 47 to 52. This and Franz Bruggen are the go-to period instrument Sturm und Drangists. They really are, and they still have come off quite well. I would prefer, of course, less of a harpsichord continuo in these pieces, but the performances are very, very good, very musical, but they're also warm and affecting and passionate and expressive. And yeah, it's a good set, a very good set. Then we've got Haydn's Violin Concerti, 3 of them, with Simon Standage, and a Salomon, Johann Peter Salomon, who was the guy who brought Haydn to England, the Romance for Violin and Strings, which is charming, absolutely charming. Then we've got Haydn Oboe Concerto in C major, and the Trumpet Concerto with Mark Bennett playing a keyed trumpet with sometimes an air of desperation. It's kind of interesting. It's not the most, easy virtuosity. Doesn't exactly come to mind when hearing that performance, but it gets the job done. And his Concerto in D major for harpsichord and orchestra. It's the famous D major with the Hungarian finale that is really a piano concerto. It's really a piano concerto, but it's okay. You can play it on the harpsichord, and it's lovely. So there's that. Then we've got one of the all-time great records of anything, the Haydn Nelson Mass. Oh my God, with Felicity Lott soprano. And the Kyrie, it's amazing. And the Te Deum with the trombone parts. I sang the Te Deum in high school. I said before, the tune sounds like a college fight song. Te Deum laudamus. Oh God, it's fun. It's like 9 minutes of complete thrilling joy and screaming, and that last blast, non confundar in aeternum. You know that the end of Bruckner's Te Deum came right out of that. It's the same ending. It's really, really cool in many respects. So it's a brilliant, fabulous performance, and I just love it. Love it. Then Haydn Theresian Mass, just as good. And the Missa Sancti Nicolai, the Nicolai Mass, which is also wonderful. These are just beautiful performances. Oh my gosh. And you also get Haydn's Stabat Mater, the complete Stabat Mater, one of the great transitional masterpieces. It's in his early style. It's Sturm und Drang period. He wrote it after recovering from an illness, and he promised to do a thank offering to the Virgin Mary. And this is some thank offering. It is the biggest Stabat Mater setting, really, of the period, I think, just about. It's 68 minutes long. It's a major, major work. I think it's the biggest Stabat Mater setting before Dvorak's. And, just an extraordinary devotional work. And for people who think that Haydn is like, not serious, like Mozart is serious, listen to the Stabat Mater. It will change your mind. Then we've got Mozart. Okay, he did all the Mozart symphonies. And, this series was somewhat quietly released. It was, living in the shadow of Hogwood's really exciting, pioneering Mozart on period instrument complete symphonies, including all the other overtures and things. There were like 60 some odd of them or something like this. This is, I think, a better cycle. I think the playing is better. I think the interpretations have more guts and pizzazz than Hogwood did. It sounds much fuller and nicer, and now we're up to CD 69. It's a beautiful Mozart cycle. Then we've got the Coronation Mass, which bores me to tears. Exultate Jubilate, which is great, with Barbara Bonney. The Vespere Solones de Confessore, beautiful work. One of Mozart's best sacred works. Mozart was never at his best in sacred music, but yeah, this is a good one. It's lovely. And, they stuck it in here. No, I knew they did that. I already listened to it. The Poulenc Concert Champêtre with the Boston Symphony in Ozawa. Thank you for putting it in here. Of course, it's all alone on one 25-minute CD, but it was always one of the best ones around. And Pinnock was cared to try and find the right instrument for the music. And so they get the balances better than most. Let's put it that way. And Ozawa was always fabulous in French music, and it's the Boston Symphony. Oh, it's a great record. The original coupling was with the organ concerto on the flip side. I think it was with Simon Preston or something like that. And that was also wonderful. So Purcell, let's see what we have from Purcell. Some odes. The ode, Come Ye Sons of Art, Away! Ode for the birthday of Queen Mary the Two. Welcome to all the pleasures. That's the ode for Saint Cecilia'S Day. And then we have the Yorkshire feast song of old, when heroes thought it base. Yeah, back in the day. These are fun. And there's more Purcell choral works. The Service in B flat, Te Deum and Jubilate, Service in B flat, Evening Service in G minor, anthems, a pile of anthems. And there are more anthems on CD 74. Latin psalms, verse anthems. Oh, my heart is inditing. I always wondered what my heart was inditing. Anyway, so you've got another male alto, Matthew Bright, David Thomas, Francis Greer, organs. Let's see, Trevor Pinnock, organ continuo. Simon Preston is directing, actually. Pinnock is just participating, and it's fun. Dido and Aeneas. Well, you got to have Dido and Aeneas, and Sophie von Otter. It was one of her sort of, a really good role for her. Sort of noble suffering, that kind of stuff. Lynn Dawson, Stephen Varco, Nigel Rogers, and others. Who's the witch? Elizabeth Preday, first witch. Sorceress and first sailor is Nile Rogers. Okay, yeah, it's a very good Dido and Aeneas. Purcell's King Arthur. Oh, I love this record. I think this was the thing that really turned me on to Purcell's theater music. It really did. King Arthur is fantastic. And this is a magnificent, magnificent set. And it was packaged so beautifully in a lovely slipcase thing and on LP. Oh, remember the LPs? When was this recorded? 91. My goodness. Did it exist in LP? I don't know. I don't remember. Was it King Arthur or was it some other Purcell thing that I used to haul around to class when I was in college? Well, that was in the 80s or the early 80s. Anyway, King Arthur's great. Let me not let my faulty memory about publication dates and cover art, dissuade you from listening to King Arthur. Then we've got Diocletian, which is also lots of fun. We've got the Mask in Diocletian, the whole thing. And let's see, where else we got next? We're up to number 80. Only 20 more to go. Timon of Athens by Purcell. Yeah, the Mask from Timon of Athens, which is typical Purcell stuff. I mean, it's no King Arthur, but it's nice. Vivaldi Gloria. Oh, yes. And Alessandro Scarlatti's Dixit Dominus. Well, that's fun. And then we've got Antonio Soler, 6 concertos for 2 keyboard instruments. These are teeny little concerti, these 6 things. They're just like an allegro and a minuet, or a slow movement and a minuet, andantino and a minuet, which he calls minuet. With Kenneth Gilbert and Trevor Pinnock on harpsichords and forte pianos. Charming. Just charming, delightful music. Again, the kind of stuff for which period instrument performances were invented. Truly. Then Telemann. We've got some Telemann, some suites. A suite in C major, which is, it's got an Espagnol and a Bourget with trumpets and a Sommet. It's one of those mixed styles that Telemann did so well, things from all of the countries. And oh gosh, it's delicious. And then we've got another overture, and let's see. We've got pictures of people playing things. So the Telemann disc, yes, I had all of these discs. And I just love them. I really do. These were such discoveries, wonderful discoveries. Charming music, full of good tunes and colorful sounds, and played so nicely. I like this, the overture in G minor that has les irrésolutes, the irresolute, and les capricieuses, and a gasconade. I mean, amazing stuff. Telemann is just so good if you could wade through all the stuff he wrote and find the pearls. There are many more than people think. Trust me. Then we've got, let's see, Vivaldi. Oh, the 4 Seasons. Well, you got to have that, right? I mean, then we've got all of L'Estro Armonico with Simon Standage. It's very, very nice. And Yap Terlinden and Elizabeth Wilcock and, famous people. There they all are. Let's take a look again at the panorama. You see that? There we go. Get the light out of it. There, don't they look like they're having a good time? Yes, of course. Let's see what else we got here. La Stravaganza, Vivaldi. Actually, there was also a Vivaldi box, which I have. I wonder if I have it right over here. Because we were talking about Vivaldi boxes. It's a terrific Vivaldi box. I mean, it really is. And here's the important thing. He's got the Concerto RV 558, right? That's the Concerto in C major for molto strumento. I love this thing. This is the most insane concerto. This is the one. Here it is. RV 558. It's for 2 recorders, 2 Chalumeau things, 2 violins in tromba marina. Nobody quite knows what that was. 2 mandolins, 2 theorbos, solo cello, and orchestra. Isn't that amazing? Bernstein recorded it in the modern arrangement that Alfredo Casella made. I mean, this is just the concerto to end all concerti. It's hysterically funny, wonderfully fun, tuneful, and delicious. So the Vivaldi stuff, it's like lots of Vivaldi stuff here, including the full Opus 10 flute concertos and the Nisi Dominus with Michael Chance, countertenor. Ugh. And we have the Concerto for Strings in Basso Continuo, the Stabat Mater for alto strings, and Continuo with Michael Chance. Okay, it's not so bad, but give me a good lady any day. And his Salve Regina for alto and 2 orchestras. Why not? Okay, so that's cool. Then we've got a Pachelbel thing. Oh, yes, the Canon and Gigue. You have to have the Canon and Gigue. These were, let's sell some records. I mean, every so often they had to do that, and more Vivaldi and Albinoni. And, the Purcell Shakati. I remember this. The Arrival of the Queen of Sheba. This was the take it from some new things and some things from previous records and make a Baroque greatest hits collection. So it has greatest hits. It's got Avicen and other people. Then we've got CD 95, a grand concert of music. Stanley, Arne, Boyce, Gimignani, and Peter Hallendahl. That's a wonderful collection of stuff. Then we have Gloria, Christmas in Rome. O di Beltemi Altera, Pastoral Cantata for the birth. Oh, that's Alessandro Scarlatti. Pastoral Cantata and Corelli's Christmas Concerto, which they'd done before, and the Vivaldi Gloria, which they'd done before. Then we've got, Mozart. Oboe Concerto in C major, C.P.E. Bach Oboe Concerto, and Lebrun Oboe Concerto, with Paul Goodwin admirably playing the oboe. Marc-Antoine Charpentier. They didn't do a lot of French Baroque. That was the French Baroque period people. They sort of divvied it up pretty fairly. So we've got Charpentier's Noël sur les instruments, and Molter's Concerto Pastorale, and Vivaldi Concerto for 2 trumpets, and Sammartini's Pastoral in G major, and Telemann's Concerto Polonoise in G major, and Handel Concerti a due cor in B flat, a due cor, and Corelli's Christmas Concerto. So there you go, sort of a Christmas theme thing, another one. And we've got Mozart, arias and things, right? Isn't this arias and things? Yes, it's an aria collection with Mozart and Gluck and more Gluck and more Mozart and Haydn, from Il Mondo della Luna and Orlando Palladino and Don Giovanni and Orfeo, and who's singing? And Sophie von Otter, of course, naturally, and Haydn's La Fedeltà Premiata, lots of fun. So that's nice. And then finally a DVD of Christmas in Rome. And if you want to go have Christmas in Rome, knock yourself out. I couldn't care less. So there you go. I mean, that's quite a selection, isn't it? I have to put the styrofoam back, which I hope doesn't disintegrate into the disgusting, sticky, horrible mess. I think I may toss out the styrofoam. It's probably a smart idea. The styrofoam spacer thing. I mean, I'll put it on top of the book. That way it'll scuzz up the book, and I won't care so much. And let's see. Back here. This is back together again. I have it upside down or backwards. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a square swastika. And so that goes there. There we are. Trevor Pinnock. I on the English concert. An extraordinary legacy, mostly really fine performances, well organized by repertoire, featuring Haydn and Purcell and Handel and Bach and Vivaldi, hitting, a lot of the major players and Mozart and doing what the period instrument movement was sort of supposed to do, making us listen afresh to some well-known repertoire while also providing piles of stuff that we'd never heard before and never would have listened to had these people not discovered them and played them so admirably. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.